But in doing so, I also felt like I need to be Stephen Bartlett. And obviously that's wrong. So we had a plan. That's not happening anymore. This is set up incredibly quick. Is how can I be me? Let's just quit. How fucking wild would that be? Do I think that it's still gonna be a struggle? Also yes. You can't beat this. Such as buying a caravan and recording a podcast in there. Why the hell not? So we had a plan. We were gonna go to Monaco and then up to Turin, over Switzerland, through the Alps, back home to Munich. That's not happening anymore. Instead, we're going towards Spain. A completely different direction, but we decided to chase the sun mainly because on the 16th of October, it's the 8th today, all campings in France at least closed down, meaning that we have to go somewhere where it's possible to stand outside. Spain, here we come. There's a lot I'm thinking about in terms of my podcast, in terms of what's next. I decided to take a break because I realized I was constantly running into a wall. Growth wasn't happening. Felt like I wasn't enjoying the type of content I was making. Just tell that I need to go back to the roots of why I started this to begin with. Because I guess what I'm come to realize is that there is no alternative. I've always had kind of in my back pocket that if I want to, I could always get a job again. But I think somehow knowing that is also keeping me from committing fully somehow. Which means that often when I then run into a wall, I'm quick to find ways or talk myself into this thought of, you know what, let's just quit. This is too hard. I can't do it. And I was listening to the audiobook of Stephen Bartlett's new book. And one thing he said that stuck out is about making the thing you have as unique as possible. I'm not the first to do an emotional podcast, first to talk to successful people. So what is it that could make me seem unique? Kira and I are currently testing the van life with the aim that if this works with a baby, we will probably buy a caravan with the idea of that becoming the podcast studio. Because I at least, and please let me know in the comments if you know someone, know absolutely no one that has a podcast in a caravan. So I'm happy I've taken these 3 weeks off. Definitely come to terms with the realization that it's better to take an extended break than to basically quit. That's the alternative I was at. And if you feel yourself drained to do the thing that you love doing, my recommendation is take 2-3 weeks off, regroup, refocus, assess what you're doing, assess why it's not working or why you think it's not working. There is a solution. You just need to look for your needle in the haystack. And that's what we're working on now. The grind continues, but recovery is currently crucial. Yesterday just blew my mind. Let me put it this way. You can't beat this. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was that view or just the fact that it was so quiet, but such a beautiful piece of nature that it really reminded me of what I set out 12 weeks ago by now with my whole bucket list idea. And I feel like when I was building my podcast, I base a lot of the stuff that I do on the way Stephen Bartlett builds his podcast, whether that's the type of trailers he makes, the type of conversations. I just love that way of telling podcasts. But in doing so, I also felt like I need to be Stephen Bartlett, basically. And obviously that's wrong. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out on this journey is how can I be me, make a difference in the podcast world, all the while living a type of life that I want to live. Such as buying a caravan and recording a podcast in there. Why the hell not? And I'm excited to see what else the rest of this holiday brings. We are now done with the cold here. Just a little bit of steam come off my breath still. That's too cold for us, so we're heading to Barcelona today, where it's actually 17 degrees at night instead of 8. This is the view from our camping and I'm in love. I'm currently in the last steps of closing a potential contract with a first editing client. This is something which developed incredibly quickly. It wasn't even the idea. And it really makes me think about this, like following the path of least resistance a little bit, that all of a sudden this is showing itself and maybe this is the route that I'm supposed to continue on. What is the amounts that I can realistically earn back from this? And do I also think I can stick with this client for the long run? And of course, how does this cut into my time on building the podcast? So a lot of new stuff for me, but I'm pretty happy with that. I'm finally getting in some money to really take away this financial insecurity that's making me all confused about whether or not I should continue with the podcast. Just arrived in Barcelona. This is where we will be staying for the rest of our holiday, I guess, before we take 5 days and slowly move back to Munich. We decided that we wanted to stay a little bit longer in one spot, also to enjoy the camping, but to get in some work days, to actually build up this buffer that I've been trying to build up, which so far hasn't been going too well. Now I would have a little in-depth session of what it takes to set up this van. So here we go. We will head into the city and we'll meet up with the Dream Team. And just in case you don't know who that is, no, it's not Michael Jordan and the Bulls. It's actually Kira, me, Alice, who you'll know from my coaching, and Daniel, who creates his own reels in Spain. You don't need to see this. So here's some more worries I have. I'm typically not the type that goes all in on things, especially financially, even more so since she's here. This is incredibly out of my comfort zone to take such a massive jump. And it also brought the question around of how are we able to earn money quicker but still be able to continue doing the podcast. And so I decided to start my own content agency, yes, next to the podcast, because the podcast is something which deserves time, and while I could force sponsorships, that would make it significantly harder to obtain and also maintain. And I think if I'm able to grow a following and continue building the podcast in a way that's sustainable, then I can focus on getting my money from elsewhere. Now if you're thinking, Ryan, you're gonna give yourself even more work to do, you would be right. Having something which I can actually sell, where I can put a logical and tangible business model behind, rather than kind of betting on assuming that my following will grow and therefore being able to get sponsors on board, feels to me like a much more sustainable way, and whereby I can focus on spreading the right message rather than focusing on spreading a message for the sake of getting money in. Now, will I have to be even more creative and efficient with my time? Yeah, hell yeah. Do I think that it's still gonna be a struggle nonetheless? Also yes. But just imagine, fast forward a year from now, and I've managed to make it work. How fucking wild would that be? Podcast in a caravan, traveling Europe, talking to amazing people, raising my baby. What a wild fucking story that would be. So if you're interested, subscribe and follow along to see if I have what it takes. Here we go, back home.